All right, people. So welcome to Jumbo IAS and welcome to UPSC Prelims Phoenix batch. In this batch, we cover the entire syllabus. We revise the entire syllabus for UPSC Prelims examination. That includes the static portion as well as current affairs. Now, current affairs series is going on separately, but this lecture is part of our static series. And those of you who have joined our Phoenix batch already are well versed with the schedule. As per the schedule, in the static portion, we are currently covering history. Okay, now today is day 5 of ancient and medieval history, and our today's topics for discussion are basically Gupta period, Vakatakas, and the Sangam age. Right? So basically, it's post-Mauryans, post-Mauryans. Okay, almost last phase of ancient history. These are your targets. Now, before watching this lecture, it is my humble request that you go through the notes provided by us for today's targets. Okay, we have already provided you with the notes. Just go through those notes and then sit for this lecture. So when you'll go through the notes, that will be your revision number 1. And now, while watching this lecture would be your revision number 2, because we are going to revise whatever was covered in those topics, whatever was covered. Okay, we are going to revise all of that through a set of 30 MCQs. Clear? So let's begin today's discussion without further ado, without further delay. All right then, let's begin. So ancient medieval history and culture, day 5, and your today's targets were, well, Sangam age, okay, Gupta, and Vakatak. Okay, so these were your targets. All right, so let's begin discussion on them. Let's start with Sangam age first. So question number 1 would be that. So question number 1, consider the following statements related to Sangam age. Okay, the earliest deciphered epigraphic inscriptions of Sangam age was in Brahmi script. The external trade of the Sangam people was carried on mainly with China. Murugan was the chief or most favorite god of Tamils during the Sangam age. All right, now listen to me carefully again. Well, the Sangam literature was written also. Okay, now the script used for writing that literature was Tamil Brahmi script. You should know this, that since the Mauryan period, well, Brahmi script was used in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, mostly in India. And for Northwest India, there was Greek script. Greek was also used. Kharoshti was used. Aramaic was used. Okay. But apart from Northwest India, okay, and I'm talking about the Indian subcontinent, Afghanistan, Pakistan, everything. In the rest of the country, Brahmi script was used. So in South India, a version of Brahmi script called Tamil Brahmi script was used. So yes, this is correct. Then, Sangam people were involved in external trade. There were ports in the Sangam age. Okay. But that trade was primarily with the Romans. India had links with the Roman Empire, trade-related links. Sangam people had established trade links with Romans, not Chinese. So this is false. The main trade was with Romans. Murugan was the chief deity of Tamil people. This is absolutely correct. Okay. So the answer to this question would come out to be C. All right. Next. With reference to early history of South India, consider the following statements. The practice of sati was prevalent in Tamil society. Seon was the primary deity of Sangam period. Trade was based on barter system known as Padamatturai. Padamatumurai. Okay. Please pardon my pronunciation if it is faulty at any stage. But Pandamatumurai. Okay. The earliest phase of social evolution reflected in Sangam works relates to early megalithic stage. All right. Now listen to me very carefully. Now, it is generally counterintuitive. Generally, people think that sati was only practiced in North India and it was later edition. But there have been evidence of sati in early Sangam age, during Sangam age as well. So this is absolutely correct. Though not all widows were forced to commit sati, but there is enough evidence that some widows did commit sati. So this is correct. Seon is another name for Murugan. So remember this. So Seon was the primary deity of Sangam period, Murugan. Yes. Trade was based on barter system, absolutely correct. Barter trade was practiced. The earliest phase of social evolution reflected in Sangam works relates to early megalithic stage. Okay. Now, for this fourth point, you need to be aware of history of South India. Okay. So in South India, when we talk about the prehistoric phase of South India, well, there were prehistoric sites, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. Now, after Neolithic, when iron was discovered, it was discovered in North India as well during the Mahajanpad phase. It was discovered in South India as well. Now, when iron was discovered, okay, now there is no writing of that phase, okay, it is prehistory that we are talking about. So during the Iron Age in South India, okay, which predates Sangam Age, well, we also see these megalithic burial sites. Okay, so the dead were buried, and based on the importance of the person who died, well, a huge boulder of stone was erected on the burial site. Okay, these were discovered. Okay, and that is why this is also known as the megalithic burial stage of southern history, okay, or prehistory in South India, because written texts were not available. Iron was discovered, and we saw megalithic burial sites. Again, lithic means stone. We have discussed this when we discussed prehistory. Mega means big. So these big stones were erected near the burial sites. Now, during that period, well, people were mainly pastoralists. Okay, nomads, nomadic animal herders. Okay, now in Sangam texts, this is mentioned that our ancestors were pastoralists, then they hunter-gatherers, then pastoralists, and then we settled down and started practicing agriculture, and from there onwards, written history started, Sangam age started. Okay, so this social evolution has been mentioned in Sangam text, so this is correct. All right, so the answer would come out to be D. Just remember this part, the prehistoric phase of southern India. During the prehistory phase, well, that is common, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, that part is common with the entire subcontinent. But during the Iron Age, there were certain unique features in South India, and that is these megalithic burial sites. It was not found in North India, but in southern India, megalithic burial was practiced. So the answer would be D. Okay, next. Which one of the following statements regarding Sangam age is not correct? Again, not is important. Madurai, the capital city of Pandyas, was the center of this literary activity. The main function of Sangam was to bring together the leading poets, scholars, and thinkers for creative and critical literary works. The term Sangam was popularized in the Tamilakam by Jain and Buddhist ascetics, monks. The name of North Indian stage, Agastya, was not referred to in the Sangam literature. Now listen to me very carefully. Well, during the Sangam age, there were three major kingdoms. Okay. Well, there were Pandyas, there were Cholas, and then there were Cheras. Right? These were the three primary chieftains or kings. They were collectively known as Movendar. Okay. Now, Chola, Chera, Pandya. Now, Sangam literature was basically composed by these poets, scholars, thinkers who used to assemble at some time. Okay. Now, when this assembly was held, that was known as Sangam. So, from the entire region, all these scholars, poets were called, and they used to assemble and discuss philosophical ideas, poetic ideas, critical thinking ideas. That assembly was known as Sangam, meeting place of all these intellectuals, right? Now, this Sangam was held in Madurai, which was the capital city of Pandyas. So, Pandyas were responsible for Sangam. Now, there were three Sangams that we know of. Well, most of Sangam literature comes to us through third Sangam, because the third Sangam literature survived actually. One document of second Sangam survived, but the third Sangam actually, most of the documents from third Sangam survived and they reached us, and that's how we are able to construct the history of Sangam age. Okay, so remember this part also. Now, yes, first statement is correct. Second statement is also correct. The term Sangam was popularized by Jain and Buddhist monks. This was also correct. Now, in Sangam literature, well, they have mentioned that there are these 545 rishis or saints, which are very important. Rishi Agastya, North Indian Rishi Agastya, North Indian sage, he was from North India, but he is also mentioned in these 545 saints, list of important 545 saints. So, name was not referred, it was referred. So, the incorrect statement over here would be D. Okay, next. With reference to southern kingdoms, consider the following statements. Madurai was the capital of Pandya dynasty. Chief center of political power of Cheras was at Urayur. Trade in cotton cloth was one of the principal sources of wealth of Chola dynasty. Now, listen to me carefully. Well, I told you that Movendar were Pandyas, Cholas on the east coast and Cheras on the west coast. Okay. Now, Chira's capital or important city was Vanji or Vanchi or Karuvar. Cholas had Urayur on Kaveri Delta and Pandyas had Madurai. So first statement is correct, but second statement is false because Chiras had Vanji, Cholas had Urayur. Trade in cotton cloth was one of the principal sources of wealth of Chola dynasty. This is absolutely correct. Okay, so the answer would come out to be C. Right? Okay, next. Consider the following statements with respect to society in Sangam age. Inadi were the ruling class who controlled the majority of land in society. Okay. Velalas were rich peasants who held military offices. Kadaisiyar were the members of lowest class who worked on agricultural land of the ruling class. Okay. Now, yes, Inadi were army captains. It was a military post. It was not ruling class. Okay. Ruling class were called Araskar, which is mentioned in your notes. So, this is false. Velalas or Velalars were rich peasant families who owned majority of the land. They were the land owning class. So yes, and they did hold military offices, high military offices, ranks of like generals and colonels. That Kadaisiyar were the agricultural laborers of that society who worked on the fields of the landowners. So this is correct. The answer would come out to be 2 and 3. Okay, next. With reference to Sangam texts, the term Virarkal refers to narrative texts of Sangam literature comprising 18 major works, stones raised in honor of heroes who have died fighting in battles. So the Shaheeds or the brave hearts who died while fighting bravely in battle, for them, when they died, huge stones were erected in their honor. This was like a memorial for that hero. Okay, those memorials were called Virarkal. So the answer would be B. Okay, next. Consider the following statements regarding Sangam age. Nagarattar was the representative body of mercantile groups, traders, in charge of trade settlement. Nagaram was a settlement of a peasant group with an exemption from liability of tax. Now, this question can be solved through logic also. As far as Nagarattars are concerned, you should know this information. This can't be solved through logic, okay? It was a representative body of traders, mercantile groups, yes. Okay, it was an association of traders. Now, this second statement can be solved through logic. Okay, you know nagarams. Nagar word is used for cities, and cities are not inhabited by peasants. For peasants, there is rural society, generally speaking. Okay, peasants generally settle down in rural areas where agriculture is practiced. Where other occupations, non-agricultural occupations are practiced in majority, those are cities. So it cannot be a settlement of peasant groups. But what Nagarams were, they were the settlements of trading class, mercantile groups. So second statement is incorrect. The answer would be A.